So we're here for our quarterly Kids Comics book launch event, and we have 5 creators, I think, if I can do math, I'm not sure. We have 5 creators on this call and 4 different books to talk about. So this is a super exciting one. And another thing that ties to this particular conversation together is that all of you are publishing with small to medium-sized publishers, which I think is really interesting. And I would really like to get into that maybe in the second half of our conversation today, what it's like to work with a smaller publisher. But so I'm going to, I gotta let people in. Is there anybody here who I could, you know what, Ed Masessa, if it's okay with you, I'm gonna make you a co-host. So
why?
If people happen, if you see the little blue button that says somebody's trying to join, can you just click join? That's all I need you to do.
Okay.
So let's see. I'm going to start with you, Marla. I think because I'm going to go in the order of boxes that I see. So Marla Lesage, is that how you say your name?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And you are in New Brunswick, Canada. Is that right?
I am. Yes.
So when I first saw New Brunswick, when I Googled you, I was like, oh my God, she lives right next door to me. But you're not
really.
New Jersey. No, you're in New Brunswick, Canada. So very different. And you're the author of AWOL, and your book came out from Eureka. Is that right?
Yeah, Eureka. It's a Canadian publisher.
Yay. Okay. And I think it's like a chapter book level. Is that right? Or middle grade?
It's a middle grade.
Okay. So we'll hear more about your book. And then the next little box that I see is Brian Schatell, who is the illustrator of Bumble Brothers, a new series by Steve Metzger, who's next to him in my Zoom grid. And Brian, you've illustrated many children's books. You have a long career as both an artist and a children's book illustrator, and you've written your own books as well. So you have a diverse background, and you're also one of the longtime organizers of the Rutgers One-on-One Conference, right?
Yes, I've been on the organizing council for well over 30 years, and I've chaired the conference like about 16 years. Yeah. So yes. And in fact, that's where Berrie's a familiar name from that, because I know she's been there a few times.
Awesome. Yeah, and I went to it for the first time because Brian, you invited me this year, and I thought it was awesome. And so anybody who doesn't know much about it, maybe Brian, when at some point later, you could say a few words about it. Because it is a really interesting format for a conference. It's different than most. And then Steve and I crossed paths at Scholastic years and years and years ago when he was an editor on Scholastic Book Clubs. We didn't work together directly, but I know we were in the same room together. And now he is the author of Bumble Brothers, which is an early reader graphic novel series with Raycraft. And super excited to hear about that because it is a very goofy, silly book, one of my favorite types of books. And then Jonathan Roth, your book is Rover and Speck, right?
Yep.
And that is with Kids Can Press, right?
Yes.
Another Canadian publisher. So we have 2 Canadian publisher books represented here today. And you're also an elementary school art teacher, right?
Yeah, that's my day job. Yep. I'm playing hooky today. I don't see any teachers here. Okay.
And and you took the day off for this call, or at least you took some time off.
Well, yeah, I do what I do.
Awesome. And then the last person is Berrie Torgan-Randall, who I met for the first time in September, right? You invited me to the SCBWI Eastern Pennsylvania Illustrators Day event, which was super fun. Although it was really hard to find the entrance. I got lost a little bit.
Yes, you did.
You found it. So I guess I'll kind of go in the order of people that I introduced here. But the first question I would like you guys to talk about is where the idea for your book came from. So Marla, could you start us off? And you can hold up your book as you're talking if you want. Just a little bit.
Sure. It's weird when I can't see myself. I can't tell if my book's in the picture. There. I'm a picture book author illustrator as well. And I don't know, I had lots of picture book ideas, and then I came up with the idea of writing a story about two girls, like a new girl moves in, they're neighbors, they're from different cultures, and I don't know, it just, I wanted to write something on that, but the ideas I had in my head were more geared towards middle grade,
Mhm.
and the idea looks nothing like the book. I mean, there's a little bit of that there, but it kind of evolved because I was thinking about setting and where can I set it. And I'm from a military family. We live in a military community. So I'm like, oh, the setting could be the military community, and she's a military brat. And that part of the story kind of took over from there.
How long ago, when did you first start thinking about this specific book?
Years ago. That's a good question. Definitely less than 5 years ago.
Mhm.
Yeah, I honestly don't know. We should all keep notes so then we can tell people exactly how long.
Oh yeah, keep lots of notes. All right, Brian and Steve, where did the idea for Bumble Brothers come from?
Well, maybe I should start with that because I'm going to take everybody back to the spring of 1964. Before many of you were born. But Ed Massessa, I know, remembers this year, as does Brian, perhaps. So here we are in the spring of 64. You turn on the radio, all you hear is Beatles music. Beatlemania has taken over, and boy, were we ready for it. So that just gives you a preview of what it was like in 1964. So my friend Steve K and I decided to do a comic strip, and we called it The Dub Brothers. And they were about two goofy guys just doing goofy things. And I visited him a few months ago in Chicago, and he saved all the Bumble Brothers comic strips. So I have the pleasure of showing you one of them. So I'm going to do a share screen now.
Oh no, this is not kid appropriate, Steve. This is
No, this was, you know what, before they were Beavis and Butthead, they were Christopher and Walter, duh. So here's just an example. One of them is smoking, gets a puff of cigarette on their, covering their head. The other one blows the smoke away and the head is gone. So here you go. That's just an example of a Dub Brothers cartoon. So, so this idea has been percolating for over 50 years. So I never forgot about it. I had lots of false starts, but then, okay, here's what the book looks like. I'll show it there, okay? And I was searching for illustrators and I couldn't really find the right one. And then one day I remembered this classic cartwheel book, Two Crazy Pigs, illustrated by Brian Schatell. And I said, maybe Brian might be interested in doing the Bumble Brothers. I love his stuff. So we connected. I actually knew Brian's wife, Jane Gerber, from her days working at Cartwheel at Scholastic as well. And we put it together. We had some, you know, sample pages, some chapters. And I reached out to Jana, who I found out from someone at Scholastic, who was just starting her agency, and the rest, we bumbled into history with the Bumble Brothers. So just the idea of two goofy guys who became now two goofy kids and just clueless about everything and just silly stuff, because I grew up, humor was such a big part of my life. Abbott and Costello, the Marx Brothers, Bob and Ray, Jack Benny, all those guys were just such a big part of my life and saved me through a lot of, you know, some family turmoil, whatever it was. Humor was really a big part of me. And so now we were fortunate to find Jana, and we were so lucky and grateful to get it published by Raycraft.
Awesome. So Brian, maybe you could talk just a tiny bit about, since the idea sort of came from Steve, but the character designs and all the artwork is yours. So how did you first envision, how did you bring it to life in the very beginning from the manuscript?
I don't have handy here some of my early, character sketches, but the first thing you do when you get a book assignment to illustrate is to kind of figure out the characters. And so I sketched what I can share. I can share a little bit, actually. I have a sketch of the cover. Let's see, screen share. Maybe go to someone else while I'm doing this.
Yeah, that sounds good. We'll come back to you, Brian.
Okay.
All right. Jonathan, where did the idea for Rover and Speck come from?
And well, actually, I have a very specific answer, which is good because like when I do school visits and stuff, kids always ask, like probably about 10 different times, and where do you get your ideas? Where do you, it's kind of a hard question, but it was 2019. It was like February something. I sat down to read the paper, and I'd been working on other stuff. So I had a chapter book series before that, Beat and Bob, that was that I write and illustrate. It's not graphic novels, like chapter books. And that it kind of was ending, or my editor left, and so it's kind of between things. And I read that morning in the paper that the Opportunity rover, kind of like space stuff, the Opportunity rover had been declared dead. And I'm like, oh no, dead? And what Opportunity is I don't know if you follow this stuff, but back in 2004, 2 rovers landed on Mars, like Spirit and Opportunity, and they were each supposed to last for about 90 days, like tops. And Spirit ended up lasting for about 5 years, and then Opportunity lasted for about 15 years. But then finally it got, damaged enough, or enough dust on the solar panels or whatever, that, they declared it dead, which I think is an interesting, word to use for rovers. But of course, it's appropriate too, because, get emotionally attached to these little beings, or whatever. And I just knew in that moment that I wanted to do a graphic novel about, little planetary robot explorer kind of things. So it was one of those kind of flash ideas. And that's what I did.
Did you immediately start sketching, or did you?
I think that weekend I wrote the first draft. I actually start with the writing.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do it a little later if you want. I'll do a little screen share or whatever. But I start with the words, and then, so I started with the idea right away. Like, it was mostly formed actually pretty quickly.
Wow, that's super cool. Okay, Berrie, where did the idea for what it's called, Bella and Blue, right?
Yeah, Bella and Blue. It's an early reader graphic novel. So my publisher, which is Blue Bronco Books, Junior, Michelle reached out to me after I sent my portfolio to her. She had on her website, she just started her publishing company in 2020. So she's really, really new. And it said fostering creatives from New Jersey. And I was like, well, there's my in. I'm from New Jersey originally. So I sent my portfolio, and she liked it. And she said, would you write a graphic novel about a little girl and her monkey? And I said, no, I'll write you a story about a little girl and her dog. And so this one happens to be a story about a therapy dog. Bella suffers from anxiety, and Michelle's company is mostly social emotional books. So I wrote the graphic novel about having anxiety, and then also how a pet would help you. And so it features a blue dog and a grandmother who really likes hats, who really help her with her anxiety.
So did you respond right away to the publisher? You knew you didn't want it to be a girl and her monkey, or did you have to think about it, or how did that go?
I didn't want kids to think that they can have pet monkeys. I'm not into that. I guess she had an aunt who had a monkey. I'm like, no, not doing it, not doing the little diapers, not doing anything like that. So I actually wrote the book so that my husband would say yes to another dog, but that didn't happen. Or hasn't happened. So I get this one. This is a stuffed animal that I had made for my character, but yeah, that's as far as that will go probably.
Wow. Okay. So, with all of you, I would love to hear a little bit more about your publishing journey. So you got the idea, you started fleshing it out. Can you give us more detail about what you put in your pitch and how you found your publisher and how all of that went? So Marla, we can start with you.
So for my pitch, I had a synopsis. I think it was very detailed, like scene by scene. I think it was maybe 2 pages long. Can't remember for sure. I had 10 sample pages of art, fully colored, and I found my agent with my pitch first. I also had a full manuscript because I'd never written anything longer than a picture book. I wanted to make sure that I could actually do it. So I wrote the full manuscript first, and that's basically what I sent my agent, and she signed me based on that. And then she had me add character sketches and descriptions as well. And I think we just sent in a sample of the manuscript. I don't think we sent the full manuscript.
How many publishers do you know how many were you submitted to?
I don't know. She sent me a spreadsheet and I just tried to not look at it unless she was emailing me specific stuff, because a little overwhelming, and I don't know if it was really discouraging because there were lots of positive comments, but I think most of the comments that were less encouraging were about my art. My art was very much the same as it is in the book, but the coloring was different. It had less color, and yeah, so some publishers were less keen on, limited color for middle grade, but it was my first graphic novel, so it was a huge learning experience right from the start.
And so from the time when you signed the contract with Orca to when the book published, how long was that?
Initially, they gave me a full year to do because I already had the manuscript. They gave me a full year to do the art. But then the pandemic happened. And in the summer of 2020, I got an idea for a mask themed book, which I also sold to Orca. So I took a couple of months off from the graphic novel to do that book so we could get it out. That one was idea to publish in 3 months.
Wow.
So yeah, so then it was a struggle to get the art done for the graphic novel. So the deadline kept getting extended. It was initially due at the end of June and it was extended until October. So it's like, I can't do math in my head. A few extra months, but
yeah,
it was tight because I was working at the same time at my day job, and my agent said, maybe you want to work less, but I was like, I'll be done. I'll just schedule shifts. And then the deadline kept moving, and once I had shifts, I couldn't get out of them. So yeah, it was stressful. But
wow.
I think a year and a half would be manageable with other stuff going on.
How many pages is it?
219.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially for a first timer. Yeah.
Okay, so Steve and Brian, from the moment, I guess, where should we start in terms of time frame? From when you first started working together to when the book came out, how long was that?
Well, if Brian isn't here, I guess I'll try to.
No, he is here.
Oh, he's there. Hey, okay, I don't see him on my screen.
Oh, Brian, you have to unmute yourself.
apologize. I had to quit Zoom and get back on in order
Okay.
to. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I know the lion's share of the work in, as far as effort and also time comes with Brian's amazing illustrations. So I think, from the beginning, I guess from the outline to the script, for me, it's like a couple of months. And then Brian, I'll let you speak about the artwork part of it.
Yeah. I think when did we first bump into each other at that restaurant? It was probably in like 2019. Was it pre-pandemic maybe?
It was pre-pandemic because yes.
So,
definitely.
I mean, it sort of was in progress for a few years before it got to Jana, maybe, or a year and a half, and by the time you started presenting, I had already thumbnailed the whole book out. And, pagination takes a while to do for something like this. And I had some dummy pages, or maybe it was at your instigation that I completed about a quarter of the book in tighter dummy form. And we had some color samples and a cover sketch. And all of that over the course, I don't know, a year or something before you started pitching it around.
Mm-hmm.
But as always, and I sympathize with Marla. I mean, there's never enough time in a contract. You always want more. It's never enough. But so working on it, and I also, a full-time staff job. It was about a year for, from contract or a little less, but it's day and night, every minute, every night, every weekend, every holiday to get this thing done. And Steve's there at the beach, I'm done with my part. He's sipping margaritas, at the pool, but
You weren't supposed to know about that.
oh, okay. But the good part is that it's fun, if you allow me, I could just show you what I was going to show you before.
Yes, that would be great.
Before I was interrupted by Zoom. So share screen. You were asking about the characters.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously it's a very silly book. And okay, can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this was an early sketch for the cover. So all I knew is I wanted extremely silly characters. These are twin brothers, but they're not identical twins, obviously. But this is true for my other stuff. I'm just going for funny and silly, so this was an early sketch for the cover. It didn't take too long to arrive at the characters. And then, in my process, this is by hand on tracing paper. I do finish line work on paper with pen, looks like that. And then I scan it in and color digitally. And this is a better view of the cover that Steve showed. So that's a little bit of that process. And I will stop sharing.
I'm so glad that you shared your process. And it's interesting that you work with pen and ink until you get to the coloring stage. Have you ever considered doing pencils with digitally?
Yes, it would be much slower for me. I would just be, yeah. I get too meticulous and anal about the process. So it's just easier for me to take, a micron pen and just go on paper, and I'm really not, I guess I should practice. I'm really not good with a tablet yet. So, and I didn't have time in this book schedule to kind of practice and get good at it. So, no, I'm fine doing this. In fact, other books, a lot of my books, I color in watercolor too, like actual watercolor, not even Photoshop. I mean, there's Photoshop involved in the Bumble Brothers, in cleaning things up and such. But I guess I'm old school,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
I was just going to say that Brian, we finished the first one and now Brian is hard at work on the second one. So it's a 3-book series. And just one other thing about the characters is that when I wrote them, they were supposed to be, you know, two white kids. And then the publisher, they're very committed to diversity. So they asked if they could be mixed race children. And we said, sure, why not? So now the father is black and the mother is white instead of everybody being white. So that was just one of the things that happened through interactions with the publisher, which I thought was interesting.
Mhm. Jonathan, what about you? What was your path from idea to publication?
Well, once I wrote up the manuscript and then drew, I'm agent, so my agent wanted, I think, about 12 finished pages, and a full manuscript and about 12 sample pages. And that's what she started submitting. The pages weren't full color. When I first conceived it, I kind of had like a baby mouse
Mhm.
feel, so just that, like, just one extra color kind of thing. So it wasn't full color yet. So that's what was submitted. And shockingly, it got like in a couple days, it got, are we allowed to say what publishers reject and all that? Or I don't know what.
Yeah, sure.
So an editor at Scholastic Graphics wanted to take it to acquisitions meeting, which they did within a week, which like has never happened fast for me before. Like I've been, through this a while, and
Mhm.
never happens that fast. So it seemed too good to be true. And guess what? It was too good to be true, because someone in the marketing at graphics or whatever said they didn't want robots, but you got anything with animals? We'll take animals, so they passed. That was sad. So then she started resubmitting, and I don't remember how many more, maybe 10. I don't remember how many more she, again, spreadsheet thing, but
Mhm.
I think we got a couple offers. We went with Kids Can, which you mentioned. It's out of Toronto. I wasn't super familiar with them. I'm here in Maryland. I know like they do Ashley Spires books and Scaredy Squirrel, things like that.
Mhm.
And they made an offer. So it took about, that was in 2020. I remember it was mentioned, the announcement came out in Publishers Weekly or whatever in March of 2020, which
Mhm.
of course other things happened that month, and we all locked down. And at that point, who knew? Like, I'm just grateful. I mean, the fact that it ever even came out at all after that, like, we never even knew that books would keep coming out, or who knew what would happen. But
Mhm.
it got bumped back a little, but so it took a couple of years, I think.
Would you be able to share anything with your screen shares with your process?
Sure. Is this a good time to do that?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, I just put together a little stuff. This is just something, I just threw this in. This is just something I showed a kid. This was my first graphic novel back when I was around 6 years old or something. Look at me. I invented this character called Batman. I don't know. You may have never heard. But I also showed that the kids, I showed that I did this. This was like when I was probably middle school or high school. And I always ask the kids, how did I get so much better? Tell me one word. How did I get better? And they, of course, someone says practice. And of course, that's the right answer. And I don't think I've drawn probably as good a hand since then. I think that hand's pretty good. Foreshortened hand. I've gotten kind of lazy. Like this is much more recent. This is from my Beep and Bob books. And this is just like pencil sketches for the spot illustrations. And you see, he's even like the hands are behind his head. See, that's how lazy I've gotten about hands. His hands are hard.
Brian's laughing a lot.
Yeah.
And then that's a more finished sketch. So most of it I start in pencil, but actually go digital. This was actually when I was this was with Aladdin, Simon & Schuster. When I signed the contract, I didn't even, the submissions were all like pen and ink. But I knew at that point I wanted to go digital. So I was like, I have to learn this really fast. And Photoshop just seemed so hard, but I found this really cool program that I still use, Sketchbook Pro. And that's really my go-to. I mean, I have Clip Studio and Photoshop, but most of the stuff I do, even I'm doing a picture book now and the graphic novels, I mostly still do most of it in Sketchbook, actually. this was like the first page. Like I say, I think I'm a little different than some cartoonists that I do all the writing first. Like I've written middle grade novels and stuff, so I kind of consider myself like a writer. Anyway, this is like, just anything that's like italics is just like, illustration notes, and then I just give the characters, just their name, and then so that's how it looks. And this is like how the finish. So back here, it's like star ships appear, and it looks like a really good drawing of stars, but that's actually like a Hubble. I use actual like NASA photographs for some of my stuff.
Are they public domain?
Yes, most of them.
Mm-hmm.
So then, it drops like this. It's kind of wordless for it. So that first little paragraph is kind of mostly this, and then when words or the dialogue starts coming into it. So that's kind of how it looks final. This would be kind of one of my rough sketches to start it. This is one of my better like kind of rough sketches. There's kind of how the pages kind of shift, but that's kind of like the inked. There's the color. But I get lazier as I go, because like the one on the left that's like a rough illustration, like for like what, page 81 or something. So by that time, I'm just like, I'm not even, this is just for me. And then the one on the right is my finished rough, like from my publisher. And then there I shifted to the left. So there's the finished rough, which is pretty close to then the one on, then there's the final ink, and then there's like color. Oh, and speaking of color, I just wanted to point out, I do have a colorist. So there's my colorist. I wanted just to give props to her.
So I have a couple questions. I did notice that the font changed from your roughs to the final. So did you choose the final or do the final lettering, or did the publisher do it?
No, the publisher, they chose the font and the layout, and they did all that.
Okay, great. And what was the other question I wanted to ask you? Oh yeah, how did you find your colorist?
She's, I kind of put out a little call, friends and stuff, but I asked my agent, got any leads, and this is another client of my agent, another illustrator who hasn't published a book yet, but I really liked her, stuff online or whatever. So, we just met online. I've never met her in person. She's in Mexico, but we kind of clicked. So I hired her.
Oh, that's fantastic. So go ahead.
I was just going to say, I agree with Jonathan there. There's no way I could have met my deadline without the aid of a colorist. I mean, it's so invaluable.
So who's your colorist, Brian?
Well, it was an illustrator friend of mine, Gary Fields, worked on it.
Fantastic. Yeah. So Berrie, we can talk about your road from idea to publication. And Marla, I didn't know, we might want to come back to you if you wanted to show any sort of process.
I did most of my stuff on paper, and then I was so done when I was done, I just tossed it.
Okay.
So I have some like finals that I could share later, but
okay. All right, we'll come back to you then. All right, Berrie, what about you?
Yeah, I'll share my screen. I have actually some process that I used to do. It's a little bit different than my graphic novels, but it's from my cartooning days, when I did a web comic for years with my characters Lola and Louie, and that's how I kind of got started doing consistent characters. So let me share that screen. You guys seeing my screen? I'll do a presentation. Okay, let me slideshow. There you go. So I give myself only 6 minutes to come up with my ideas. That's true for my like my chapters of my my graphic novel that I did, the Bella in Blue, and then I would send that to the editor. I'd make like a script and everything. So I do that because I don't want to get bogged down with obsessing about certain things, because then the ideas are just not fresh anymore. So this was for one of my comics. So I just think
For
about.
some reason, we can't see your
Oh.
screen, or I can, it just says loading.
Right. You can go on to Marla and maybe I can figure out what the heck is going on with mine.
Okay, well then we can move on to the other question that I was going to ask you about, which is I wanted to ask you about working with a smaller to medium-sized publisher. I would really like to know what the experience has been like compared to some of you have worked at big publishers or you have done books. Because I think, Jonathan, have you published with Little Brown as well? Is that right?
Well, Simon & Schuster. I do have a picture book coming out with Little Brown
Okay,
next, or 2024.
okay. But Simon & Schuster is definitely a big publisher. So I'd love to hear the difference between working with different size publishers and what your experience has been. I actually don't care who wants to jump in and.
Well, since you already started, yeah. So so far I like it. So Kids Can Press, again, it's out of Toronto. I guess it's a big, for Canada, it's like a big,
Mhm.
children's. I think it's the biggest in
Yeah.
Canada, or whatever, but yeah, the attention, like for Simon & Schuster, I was definitely a very small, little and I didn't have any conversations with publicity or marketing, or my editor ended up leaving. Like it,
Mhm.
I don't know. I mean, I love my editor and stuff, but in contrast, like Kids Can Press, the summer before it came out, or this summer, or whatever, I met online with the whole marketing team, and the email, we have a lot of email things going back and forth. And when they went to ALA, I went to I actually went to the Simon & Schuster booth too, but I got to meet them
Mhm.
in person, and just it just feels much more like, and all of them I remember have been there like maybe 10 years, except for the people very new. Like
Mhm.
there's a lot of longevity in the company and stuff. So so far I'm pretty happy with that.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I don't know anybody personally at Kids Can Press, but I have a good impression of them. They seem like a really good company. That's great to hear. Steve and Brian, what about you?
Okay, well, I'll jump in. Yeah, it's from working with Scholastic versus, Raycraft, it's a big difference. And I think it's, some positives, some negatives, or let's say some not so positives. Now, the positives is that they really were hands off as far as the editorial comment. And I think just Brian and I, and Jana helped editorially with comments. We created this book ourselves. This is our creation. It was all hands off as far as this book getting done. So that was a great thing. They didn't take over and move it in a different direction. They did lovely bookmarks for us, which were nice to receive. They're very small, and I think marketing wise, basically it was up to us to do what we do. I mean, even with large publishers like Scholastic, they just mostly handle, the Dave Pilkeys and all the big stars get, 90% of the marketing, glitz, and the other people sort of are on their own. So we were like in that category. They said they were going to do a book trailer in October. I'm still waiting to see that. It's just, sometimes the pricing was listed a bit wrong in the catalog, just little things. But, when you point things out, they're very responsive to what needed to be changed. So basically, I would just say we were so excited to have them published. They did a great job publishing. The book looks great. So on the whole, I think very, very positive, but with a publisher that has just about who knows how many people, 6 people doing all their books, you can't really expect them to be, focusing all the time on yours, which you would like them to, but that's not reality. So a solid A-. I don't know if I gave a grade, I guess.
I concur with what Steve's saying. I love the people at Raycraft, but they are probably well, I don't know what's going on at the bigger companies too, if they're pared down their staff, in these times. But you have people wearing a lot of hats at once, and sometimes getting responses to emails takes longer than one might want, though I don't think that's just small presses these days. But it's true. They really they were not steering the book into their preconceived notion of what it should be, with all these notes on this page and that page and that page, which I'm happy to do that sort of stuff. I mean, I've worked with other publishers, but they weren't like that, and they seemed very genuinely thrilled, like not just, oh, we're filling the list here, but like genuinely thrilled with what we were showing them and really happy to be working on it. And so that was very good.
And they also must have submitted the book to the Junior Library Guild, because it did come away with a Junior Library Guild Gold Standard Selection. Oh, I was trying to get that right. So it did win an award, and that's based on Raycraft making sure that these people at JLG got the book. So very pleased about that too.
So maybe, Steve, you could explain a little bit about what Junior Library Guild is for people who don't know about it.
Here's the little sticker on the book. It's an organization. It's a for-profit organization that publicizes. I'm not exactly sure how they work, but I know they, once you get this designation, they will buy 2,000 books and they will send them to libraries. So they're a small company. You could just, Google jlg.com and get a better understanding of what they do, but it's not for profit. It is a for-profit company, and they are definitely children's librarian focused. So that's what I can tell you about them.
Yeah, I think they have a lot of clout in the library world. So if your book is a JLG selection, it usually means more exposure for your book in the library market.
Yeah, I mean, that was thrilling, because the book is, if you get a chance to read it, I know maybe Ed has read it. It's so silly that somebody at JLG had that same sense of humor as Brian and me and really liked it. So that was fun, because a lot of adults, I don't know, are serious. They don't see the silliness in the world. And anyway, that was very exciting to get that award.
Yeah, congrats on that.
The
So
junior library, I love their list. As a librarian, I used to use their lists all the time. They have great.
yes,
great lists.
they do. Marla, we were gonna come back to you, I think. And what about your experience with Orca?
I've only worked with small to medium publishers, but Orca was excellent. Like everyone else said, it's a very personal experience. They really care. They're excited about everything. And now, my editor did leave after she was done working on the book, but when the book came out, she got in touch with me to say congratulations. Yeah, so that was really nice.
Is Orca based in Vancouver or
in BC somewhere?
Oh, okay.
Victoria, maybe.
Oh, okay.
I feel like Victoria. I lost my train of thought. Yeah. Oh, there's something I wanted to say about that, and now I don't remember. Someone was asking if they only accept Canadian authors, and I think so. I thought that most Canadian publishers were like that because of funding. They get funding through the government, but the pay is not quite as good as the American publishers. Oh, my book came out October 22nd, and it's already gone to reprint.
That's great.
Oh, that's great.
That was pretty cool. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that to happen so quickly.
I do know that Canadian publishers, I don't know, maybe it's a publisher to publisher policy, but one of my
It must
clients
be.
has a book with a Canadian publisher with AWOL Kids, and she's not Canadian, so they do. Some of them do definitely accept non-Canadian authors.
Yeah, I think the ones that don't usually specifically state on their website in the submissions, and they say because of funding.
Mhm,
So they must get more government grants than the other ones, maybe.
mhm. Barry, how about you? You're working with a micro press almost. So tell us what's that's been like.
Actually, it's been really good. When I initially got the call from Michelle, I wanted to wait for kind of like the big guns in the publishing world because I had been working so hard on just getting myself out there and really pushing myself to get something published. And my husband said, nope, you got to go for it. And it's been great. She's very small. There's probably about 4 people right now working the whole thing, but she's acquiring a lot of titles. It seems like they just opened up, they just hired an editor for YA.
Mhm.
Yeah, she's been she's a go-getter and she's working full-time too. So I don't know how she's doing it.
Wow.
She just got the books are going to be distributed through Baker and Taylor now, which is a big deal, especially in the library world. So they'll be easy to they were published originally by Ingram, and now it's going to be Baker and Taylor for the distribution. So I'm excited about that. And this
Yeah.
is also, my book is also a series, so I was excited. I'm contracted to do at least 2 of them. She hasn't given me the go ahead. So I haven't been thinking about like what will happen next for Bella and Blue, but I have my ideas. So I had this cartoon character that I did consistent, just to make consistent characters, after taking a cartooning class. So I came up with these 2 characters called Lola and Louie. And what I did is made these little mini books. I don't know if you guys know how to make these books, but it's like 1 piece of paper and then folded. So every month I used to make one of these little cartoon books based on a brother and sister. And then I would send these to publishers, and I would make them for my school students. And that got a little cumbersome because I think they're 8 panels or 6 panels. There are 6 panels. And so I did that for probably about 2 years. And then I went to more of a seasonal cartoon. So then they became these 3-panel cartoons of these 2 characters, and I would give it out. I went to a lot of conferences like RUCCL, the Rutgers conference, and then also I took a couple of highlights courses. So I would give them out to agents and editors there, and send them to people for when we were able to send things out. Now it doesn't seem to be a thing to do. So that's how I kind of got used to doing consistent characters. And then when I sent my portfolio to Michelle at Blue Bronco Books, she wanted to do a graphic novel like Unicorn and Yeti, but she only wanted to make it 2 colors. And so I said, I don't think kids would be attracted to just 2 colors. So then I convinced her to use a 3rd color. And so then that's when I picked up the blue. And actually the blue is a Tiffany blue, because good things come in little packages from Tiffany's. So that was, and then my style, I think, is I tried to find my book. I have all these books for my school presentations, but I really like the books that I really liked when I was a kid were Bread and Jam for Francis. Very similar to what the style of what I do today. And then also Harry the Dirty Dog was definitely a mentor text for me. That's kind of my style. And when I was doing these cartoons, this is all watercolor and pencil and ink, and or pencil and like graphite pencil. And now I've discovered Procreate. And I don't think, I think it would have been very difficult to do all these illustrations by hand. So these are all digital. I do sketch in pencil. Oh, no, actually I sketch in pen, like a ballpoint pen. Somebody had given me that advice that you should sketch in pen, because then you're not so bogged down with erasing everything. Yeah, so that's my process.
That's
I had
awesome.
I had like a whole movie to show you like my process and stuff, but that's okay. Well, another time.
Is the movie available on YouTube?
No, but I can put it on YouTube. I'll have
You
to
should, yes.
Okay.
That would be awesome.
Okay.
And then share it inside of Kids Comics Unite.
Okay, that sounds great.
So I would love to open it up to questions. If any of you have questions for any of our book launch people here today.
I guess I have a question about working with colorists. Brian and Jonathan, I guess you both work with colorists. Did you have all the lines done for your book before you started the coloring process?
Let me start. No, one reason I needed a colorist is because I didn't short deadline, and so I had the ability to, as I finished black line work, to feed it to the colorist, so he could be working on color while I'm still working on the black line, and that way I had a hope, like a faint hope of meeting my deadline. And though you know, I laid out a lot of stuff for the colorist, you know, what color the characters were, you know, there was a whole color key thing. And I would maybe do, you know, a few panels in the scene first, and then all the subsequent scenes in the same setting, they would follow that. So, you know, I sort of set a lot of direction for it, but it was really for the manpower, you know, that I did it, and so we had to work concurrently.
Jonathan, how about you?
Yeah, pretty much the same. I mean, when I was finishing, I mean, the roughs were all approved and edited, and as I was finishing the finals, I was feeding it to her to color, and then we handed the whole thing in at the end. So yeah.
Did the publisher pay for your colorist? I'm just curious.
No, not
Okay.
me.
No,
Okay.
no.
Out of pocket.
That's another difference between a small press and a large press. I think a large publisher you might be able to work that out in the deal, but Raycraft, I didn't even bother bringing it up because I didn't think they would.
And can I just follow up? Are you guys indicating any of the lighting, or is that also the colorist's sort of job? Like shadows and highlights, or
I set out how I sort of wanted. I mean, my book isn't in too much in a realistic style, but yeah, I have a template for shadows. You know, see what I did here, kind of repeat that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Once we had the palette figured out, I just kind of let her go, because once she got what I was after, and I said, you know, just like at first she was doing all the sky, it's like a alien planet where she was doing like the sky's all yellow or red or something. I said, no, just you can vary the set, you know, and she started varying it and just having a lot of fun. And so I think, you know, 95% of it was her choices and her shadow. I mean, once you get a character, you know, once you kind of figure out where the shadows, you know, her the style, then it was just kind of consistent.
Cool. Thank you.
I did have one more. Well, I was going to ask a little bit about how you guys are getting the word out about your books.
We have to get the word out? Oh, no. They didn't tell me that.
I thought that's the publisher's job.
Yeah, publisher's job. Word out.
Well, how are you doing it? How's the publisher doing?
My publisher sends me samples of like ads and stuff, and I know the thumbnail of my book was in the Chapters Indigo flyer leading up to Christmas, which was kind of cool. But that's all the publisher. Thank goodness I have a publisher, because if I was self-publishing, like nobody would know. I'm trying though.
Barry, you were gonna say
Yeah,
something.
I've been going to so I had a big not a big book launch, but I've been working with a local bookstore, and they've been great. Children's Book World in Haverford, PA, and they had a book launch party for me. And then they're also going to send me out on school visits. They haven't sent me out yet, but that's my goal for in January, is to put out a flyer for or a flyer email for schools, local schools, just to tell them about myself and the book. And then I'm also going to the New Jersey Association of School Libraries, which is in Atlantic City, which is not, I mean, it's about an hour away from me. I heard from my publisher that that's a great way to get your name out to librarians in New Jersey. So that's how I've been promoting, and then word of mouth too, and trying to get Michelle wants me to get 50 Amazon reviews, so it's so hard to do. I've got 29, so I'm hoping
That's
that,
good.
yeah, that's not bad. And so I'm hoping to get more reviews. I've asked all my friends, my kids' friends, to leave a review. So that's how I'm getting the word out. Oh, and I'm an illustrator coordinator for SCBWI, so I'm using SCBWI as much as I can to help promote.
That's great. I had a question, a follow-up question I was going to ask you, but now it zoomed out of my head. Well, hopefully it'll come back. Steve and Brian.
I have a few things that I've been doing. I produced a newsletter. I sent a couple of newsletters out to 250 of my closest contacts. School visits. I've had a couple of school visits and a couple more coming up. I've contacted a bunch of bloggers, reviewers, and asked them if they want to see a copy of the book. I was a guest on someone's podcast. I did a book giveaway on Twitter about a month ago. I mail books just sometimes if I see a library or a school that I think might be interested. I just randomly send them a book and say, you know, I'm interested in coming to visit. And, you know, any kind of news that happens, I'll post it on Instagram or Facebook. Yeah, I'm not on Twitter anymore. I've decided not to be there. But whatever little social media I can do, I'll do.
Jonathan or Brian, you want to add anything?
Well, I'm sort of, Steve is taking the lead on this because you know, as we discussed before, he has a little more free time, having finished the manuscript, and I'm really very hard at work right now. So it's really Steve taking the lead on publicizing this. But
Jonathan?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, online is a little bit of an Achilles heel for me. I was briefly on Twitter a while ago, but I'm an early adopter at quitting Twitter. I quit that a while ago too. So I don't do much. The thing, I think my biggest strength is giving school presentations, since I'm like a teacher by day, and you know, I'm good at it and I like to do it. And so I really try to get into like school visits. I mean, this year I went down to, I only teach 4 days a week now, like full time or whatever. So I have like my Wednesday dedicated to potential school visits, and also working on, there's like 2 more books in the series coming out, and I'm working on that picture book. So yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of stuff. So yeah, I wish publishers could do more. I think Kids Can Press is good. I think they, even though they're Canadian, they said, I think 80% of their sales or whatever are with US school and library markets. So, and they do accept, I mean, most of their authors and illustrators are Canadian too, but obviously they do accept, you know, US
Mhm.
creators too. So if any of you want to submit to them, they're pretty cool.
Great.
If you ever figure out the magic bullet for how to promote, like,
Oh, there is no magic bullet.
Oh,
That is,
no.
unfortunately, there is none. There's only figuring out what works for you. Marla, did we talk to you about this already? I can't remember if I already asked you what you're doing to get the word out.
I think I said not much. I did do a little book
Oh yeah, you
launch.
did, right.
Yeah, and actually because I set the book locally
Mhm.
and I put the youth center. So it's like a military family thing that anyone can go, but it's a youth center. And I put it in my book and I asked them if I could come and take pictures and put it in the book. So they followed up with me to see if my book was out yet. And so they actually hosted my book launch for me and they were really excited and pushing it out on their social media. So
Mhm.
very local, but I think that's a good place to start.
Mhm.
And I have lots of ideas, but I really struggle more so this year than pre-pandemic with my other books. But I'm
Mhm.
really struggling with the initiative and the time to actually make my ideas happen.
Mhm.
So it's good, Joe. I'm taking notes of what everyone else is doing because I'm like, okay, my ideas are good. I just need to make it happen.
Mhm.
If anyone has suggestions for that, that'd be amazing.
Actually, this summer we did a survey with Kids Comics Unite members about, what they like about Kids Comics Unite and what they don't like and what they need in their lives and where their struggles are. And the number one issue that came up in so many different aspects of the survey was like time management and fitting everything in. It was amazing how many people talked about that in one way or another. So I feel like everybody struggles with it. So I'm gonna wrap things up really soon, but I wanted to ask if all of you could put your link to your book in the chat. Do you happen to have it? If you could put it in the chat, that would be really great. And I would like to conclude with each of you just saying, like, who do you feel like the ideal reader of your book is? Because everybody here probably has holiday gift lists, and maybe somebody has somebody on their holiday gift list for whom your book might be perfect. So let's see, who should we start with? Maybe with Brian. Like, what would you say?
I would say that the Bumble Brothers Crazy for Comics is a perfect gift for 7 to 9-year-olds of all ages. So you don't have to like literally be 7 to 9. You just have to
Live in the 7 to 9-year-old.
yes, you have to, that kind of thing going on. But it's a fun book. Listen, I'm an adult. I read this stuff.
Mhm.
This is
I
fun
would
reading
also
for
say,
me.
I feel like Bumble Brothers is really, really great for kids who are at that point where they're just learning to read on their own, but they're still maybe, they're not quite proficient yet. I think
Yeah.
that's that would be a real sweet spot.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree with Jan and Brian. Also add, I guess, the reluctant reader category would be a good category for this, especially, I think more boys than girls are reluctant readers. That's just my perception. And I think for reluctant reader, 7 to 9-year-old early reading boys, I would guess is.
And mine's probably the opposite of 7 to 9-year-old girls. I think appeal to my character is actually on the back. It says K through 3rd grade, but it does have a girl, a character, and a grandmother. So I would say appeals more to girls.
And kids who like animals a lot.
Oh yeah, kids who are dog lovers. Yes, of course.
Dog lovers. Okay, great. And Marla, sorry. How about you?
Yeah, mine is for ages 8 to 12, and it will appeal to kids who like reading contemporary realistic. They like reading something that feels like it could actually happen. My daughter told me it feels like real life.
How
But
about you,
again, any age would enjoy it.
Jonathan?
I think mine are aimed or whatever at 7 to 10-year-olds, says on the cover. I think of myself primarily as a humorist, even though it's like kind of like, space or adventure, whatever. So, like whoever likes funny stuff. But again, there's a STEAM element, it's like there's science facts in here and stuff. And it's also like, since I'm an artist, like there's like art, the creatures they meet are like sculptors and stuff. So there's a lot of like kind of art stuff in there too. So there really is an A in STEAM.
Do you put those two things together in your presentations to schools?
Like this, yeah.
The STEAM and the art aspect? Like, do you do any interactive activities with the kids?
I mean, not as much interactive in like a school presentation. I mean, there's a lot of like discussion and stuff, but I talk a lot about like space stuff and science stuff and art stuff. So yeah, it's all kind of interwoven.
Okay, great. Well, everybody, thank you so much. I'm gonna ask if there's any last questions.
Can I
Yes,
just,
Brian?
you would wanted me to mention something about the Rutgers conference. So
Oh yes, yes, please tell us, because I found it to be a really wonderful conference.
very quick plug. The Rutgers University Council on Children's Literature was started in 1969, before SCBWI even existed, and we've been having a conference for over 50 years, which for decades has been a one-on-one mentoring conference for authors and illustrators of children's books, all genres, YA, picture book, nonfiction, and now graphic novels more and more as that's coming into it. We're started under the auspices of the president of Rutgers University, and we sort of have a loose affiliation with them. But because of COVID, we weren't able to have live conferences the past number of years. And this past year, we started it again, but Rutgers is not allowing these events on campus. So we had to do the Rutgers conference, not at Rutgers, at like a different campus that would enable us to have a group in their facility. But www.ruccl.org, I think, and everybody who gets, it's a competitive entry. We only have limited space, but everybody who gets into the conference by submitting a manuscript or a dummy is paired for a 45-minute one-on-one mentoring session with an editor, an agent, an art director. It's not like you pay extra for it, like at some conferences. It's not like you get 15 minutes. Everybody who's in gets this. That's the whole point of it. And we've been doing that. We sort of pioneered that, over decades ago. So that's just and I've been in, chair of it for like 15, 16 years. And we have a lot of fun, and you come out really inspired, and you network with people, and all the editors, like all the editors and the agents are donating their services. They're not getting paid to be there. They're there to meet people, so.
Yeah, I found it to be just a wonderful experience. And one of your co-organizers, oh my gosh, I forgot her name. She's a prolific author. And she was
Tara?
Yes, Tara Lazar, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Tara Lazar was the best conference moderator host I've ever seen at a conference. She was so funny and just so full of energy and enthusiasm. And she made everybody there feel like, yes, we're going to do this together. So it was great. I loved her. And I think she has a great blog, right?
She does have a great blog.
Yeah. So I would really recommend taking a look at her blog.
Anyway, check it out, www.ruccl.org. We'd love to have more graphic novel people apply, because not so many have been yet.
Yes, I was there as a mentor, and my the mentee that I was paired with, she had a graphic novel pitch, which was really interesting, and we had a great conversation with each other. So yeah. So I guess a plug for Kids Comics Unite. Don't forget this Saturday. I hope all of you can come to the Kids Comics Unite Pitch Fest. If it doesn't matter if you submitted or if you didn't submit, you can still buy a ticket and come. And we're gonna have really amazing speakers. Rivka Lafi, Colleen A.F. Venable, who is both the publishing director for Epic Kids and a prolific graphic novel author herself, and then Whitney Leopard, who is the senior editor for Random House Graphic and who used to be at Boom Studios and who just knows everybody in the comics industry. So I think and all three of those people are so nice and so generous. I feel like it's going to be amazing. So I hope you all can come. All right. So see you on Saturday.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
everyone.
Yeah.
Jonathan, Brian, Marla, and Berry. Bye.